There's a little spinny thing. I love it. We are live. How are you doing, Wendy?
Amazing.
Good
Always
deal.
amazing.
I know. I love doing this. I love doing this. And like I was telling you, I got my little stand-up desk. So I'm like, okay, I'm moving around, making things happen, making money moves, trying to help people make money moves.
I'm a
So
little jealous of your standing desk. So
I'll send you the link. It was a very good investment, especially for the new Zoom Frontier that everybody finds himself. If you're working remote, you've got to get a stand-up desk. That way, you're not sitting all day and your legs go crazy. And the next thing you know, we've got some exciting stuff today. We're going to be talking about how do you grow your money. There's three ways in America you're going to grow your money, but that's not the most important piece. The most important piece is how much of that money do you actually get to keep. Talking about taxes. So everybody's excited about paying their taxes. So give us a quick second and we're going to get started. So we'll let some other people join us and we'll get started in just a minute. We are back and ready to talk. So today was on the Money Move show. Like I said, we're going to be talking about how do you grow your money? And then just as important, if not more important, how do you actually keep it from the government, state taxes, federal taxes, and all the above. So I don't know about you, Wendy. Are you excited about paying taxes?
never.
I mean,
I'm blessed that I make enough money that the government wants some.
Even if you didn't, the government wants some. Trust me. And that's okay. I love our first responders. I love our schools. I love our military. But, if I can keep more of my money, I think I can do a better job with it than they can. But that's just me. But first, you got to make it, right? So, when you talk about, and I'm not talking about your job or your side hustle or whatever the case, I'm talking about that whole point of having your money making money for you, which that's that 24/7, right? You want to build up some assets. Everybody needs an MBA, a massive bank account, right? Not talking school, I'm talking a massive bank account, and not necessarily in the bank either, but you want to create a nest egg or stack cash or whatever you want to call it, but you want to have that money working for you, right? So, you look at the three different ways, and I'm going to go over that. So if you got a pen and paper, grab it. And for those people that are joining a little late, make sure you're following us on YouTube. This is great information, if I do say so myself. So make sure that you're sharing this with your friends, family, or whatever. We're not doing any sales, guys. It's all about educating. Our whole goal, Winnie and I sat down, we're on a mission to bring Wall Street to Main Street and show you what the wealthy have been doing for years and just little money moves that you can make that cost very little, if anything at all, that you can do just to pay attention to that education that'll make huge strides for you financially down the road. So grab a pen and paper and let's write down number one. The number one way that you're going to grow money or that people grow money in America is fixed. A fixed rate of return. You guys have heard this. There's a lot of different things that do that, right? Can you name some of the quick things, Wendy, that are fixed? When I say fixed rate of return, what are you thinking?
I don't have it anymore, but a salary.
Well, a salary, okay. That's
savings account, that's fixed, right?
Yeah, savings account, right? So there's you've got whole life insurance. A lot of people do that too. But let's go with that savings account because that's pretty much everybody's got a savings account or used to anyway. Now you look at that, and what a fixed rate's going to do is just kind of go steady. You're not really growing, but you're not losing, right? So it's like that flat line on the growth chart, right? Which I guess that's okay. You're not really losing your money, and that's why a lot of people put their money in the bank, right? Because at least that's
right. It's better than the shoebox.
Better than a shoebox. And I've talked to clients that have had literally several tens of thousands of dollars in boxes in their house. And it's like, I must worry about fires more than other people. But it's like, at least in the bank, you got that FDIC thing, which read the fine print on that one too. But yeah, it's that fixed rate of return. But, I always compare it to if you were in the hospital, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're hooked up to a machine and there's a little beep, beep, the EKG machine or whatever it's called. And if you look over and your machine all of a sudden is doing a flat line, is that a good day or a bad day?
A bad day. Definitely a bad day.
That's a really bad day, right? And that's really what your money's doing too. It's slowly dying. Okay. And it's dying through what's called inflation, right? Now,
Right.
back in the day, banks used to pay some great returns. I kid you not. I remember going to the bank with my grandmother. True story. Went to the bank with my grandmother. You know, she was driving her big Bonneville, and we went up to the
My
drive-through, and
parents' first new car was a Pontiac Bonneville.
there you go. It used to be a big thing back in the day, literally a big thing back in the day. So we went up to the drive-through window, and I think I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8, something like that. I was excited because I got, you know, the lollipop, right? And she had her passbook and had a bunch of $100 bills in it, you know. And I said, "What are you doing with your money, Grandma?" She put it through the window, and because I was confused why she was giving her money away. She's like, "Oh, they're going to put it in my savings account." I'm like, "Why don't you just keep it at home, like I do in my piggy bank?"
Hmm.
And she said, "Well, John, I do that because they pay me 8% interest." 8% in a regular flipping
Wow.
savings account. And you validate it. Go out to the Google people and validate that. But it's a true story. They used to all pay that, but they figured out, guess what? They don't have to do that anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. When, like I said, the lady came back, gave her passbook to my grandmother, had a couple of lollipops in there for me too. I was happy. Now, funny thing though, the banks don't pay that 8% interest anymore, but they still give out those lollipops, right?
Do they? I don't know. I don't go to the bank.
They do. They give out the lollipops. They, in my bank, I go into bank. I'm not going to name the bank, but you'd know it if I said it. They have a little basket in there, and it's got those little lollipops, and they all use the same brand. Do you know what brand they use?
Uh-uh.
Dum Dums. You know the Dum Dum suckers?
Yeah.
And I promise you that is not by accident. Why would all the banks do that? Why? Because we keep lining up giving our money, and they give a crappy rate of return anymore. So these are inside financial things. These are Easter eggs, folks. You got to look for this stuff when you're dealing with financial people. So that's the first one, is fixed. Your money's slowly dying. Because if you're getting a 0.5%, right? If you're lucky, that's more of a credit union, but more likely a tenth or a quarter of 1%. Inflation alone is creeping up on 7% this year. I mean, so your money is not growing, it's losing buying power, right? So that's the first way, is fixed. The second way is variable. Okay. And we all know what the variable is. That's that, rocky roller coaster ride where you're going up and you're going down. It's almost like, hang on. Yeah, I'm growing. Oh my God, I'm losing everything. It's one of those.
What the young people do, right?
Well, yeah, no, crypto is even more. That's like the whirly thing at the carnival. It's not even an amusement park. It's a carnival. But you can make money in it and you can lose money. You can make money in it. And that's what most of us do, through the 401k or IRA. Self-employed people do a lot of IRAs. And what are some of the things that you would be concerned about in a variable format that most people are?
Well, how much loss and when you lose, like the timing of it. Like I think we talked about this before, and I know my dad experienced this. So he was coming up on retirement, and he worked for GM, and all his retirement 401k stock was in GM. And then we all know what happened to GM around that time, right? A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, I guess I'm not retiring yet. Right. So now it's come back and, things are better, but yeah. And now he's retired this past year, but yeah, it was like, it totally changed the date of his retirement.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And everybody tries to time it just right. Nobody ever does. Okay. Unless it's just total dumb luck. Right. But that's a big impact. I had a similar situation. One of my mentors, when I was younger coming up, he wanted to, retire. He had planned on retiring in 2001. That was his retirement. And I was in my 20s at the time. And I remember he was devastated when 2000 hit, the dot-com bubble, everything went through the floor. And all of a sudden he had to work, I think he finally retired in 2006. He got out, thank God, before the next big, whammy happened. But that's what's going on. You get those ups and you get those downs. Now we're told some stories. I'll say that word, stories, by traditional financial advisors out there. I'm sure they're well-intended, but that's just the message they keep regurgitating is, don't worry about it. It's long-term money, right? Set it and forget it, right? Don't look at it. A couple of things with that. Number one, why the hell wouldn't I look at my own money? I mean, I'm going to watch that like a hawk. That's my retirement, right? I want to make sure that's my wealth I'm building. Number two is, yeah, I understand that I'll get that back. I'll get that money back. But if you think about it, the market corrects usually on average about every 6 to 7 years. Now, we had the longest bull run ever, which is a good thing, right? This last decade, right? It would just grow. Well, now we're starting to see the wobbly wheels, and it's getting really wobbly. Some major corrections are about to happen. worse than '08. Hang on. But you look at that, and if I start saving when I'm 25 and I go to 65, that traditional retirement age is 65, that's 40 years. Man, that's 40 years. That's a long time to be saving, growing my money and things like that. Well, wait a minute. Market corrections happen about every 6 to 7. Okay. So during that period, I may have 4 or 5 in there, 3, at least 3, if not 4 or 5 market corrections in there. And each time during the corrections, it's going to take you 4 or 5 years to get that money back. Okay. Because you lose, right?
Yeah.
If you go to and I'll make it simple. If you go to their blackjack table, put $100 down and lose it, I better slow my roll or I'm going to have a quick night. So I start betting 20s. Well, if I win the next 2 times, I'm still down, aren't I?
Right.
Yeah. So that's what happens is, all of a sudden that 40 years, because I'm really getting my losses back half the time, goes down to 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people get confused because they don't realize that. So that's that variable. Get the ups, you get the downs, hang on, hope it all works out. And a lot of people see that in their 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So number 1, fixed. Number 2 is variable. Okay. Now, the third one that's out there is called index. Okay. Now, there's a lot of different index strategies. If you don't know what index is, Google it, look at Warren Buffett and see what he has to say about index strategies. Okay. He's a big fan. I'm a big fan of Warren, and I'm a big fan of indexing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what that is you talk about diversification. You talk about, your dad put all of his stock in GM.
Yeah.
Lesson learned, right? A lot of people learned a few years back with Enron, things like that. You never want to put your eggs in one basket. Well, to diversify, you go out, mutual funds or whatever the case may be. And I'm not giving actual advice here, guys. What I'm doing is teaching a lesson. So just kind of my little disclaimer there. But you can also get index strategies where they're actually tied to entire markets like the S&P or the Dow Jones or whatever, or a combination of those. Well, some of those even have something called a hedge on them, okay, where you get market gains, but when the market drops, it's like a safety net. So think about that for a second. Okay, so I can actually get market gains and it protects me when the market goes down. That's huge. Yeah. Okay, that's huge. Now, what that means is I don't grow that year, but I don't lose that year. So the next year when the market starts to tick up, like the S&P on average went up 1.9% in 2009, but nobody cared. Why? Because they lost 40% the year before, right? They lost their butt the year before. So this way you can actually get a little bit of growth. So if I were picking, or I'm going to ask you, I'll ask you, Wendy, if you were picking, would you want fixed, variable, the rocky up and down roller coaster, or the indexed with the safety net?
For sure, the indexed.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's the point. And there, like I said, there's a bunch of different things that do this out there. Mm-hmm. Get with an advisor or get with your person or whoever. Don't try to Google it and do it on your own. Don't do that. You don't want to roll the dice on your future, but get with somebody and figure out which one's the right for you, or is it a combination of each? Right. So flip the switch on this. Now, growing money is great, but keeping it is even better. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is be an eye opener for somebody. So I want you guys to lean in and listen on this stuff because so few of us talk about lean in. That's right. I love it. It's talking about taxes. So you said you love paying taxes, right?
I love it.
Love it? No, nobody does. Nobody does.
It's like the worst thing I have to do.
Yeah. It's one of those that, it's kind of like you hear the old adage. My grandma used to say,
evil. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you have the old adage of death and taxes, right? That the two things you're guaranteed in life. So you can actually diversify or spread the risk on your taxes, just like you can on your growth account, right? Mm-hmm. Again, spread the love around, kind of help balance it out and protect yourself against tax increases, things like that. So fortunately, again, trying to keep it simple here, you've got 3 ways you're taxed in America. Okay, so let's talk about those. So we'll call this 1, 2, and 3. So we had A, B, and C before. So now we got 1, 2, 3. The number one way you're taxed is tax now. Okay. And you think about that. Well, what does that mean? Well, you go get your paycheck, right? You look at it, whether it's a job or if you're self-employed, you pay your quarterlies or whatever the case may be. I look at it. Okay, I made this, but some money's missing. 40 hours a week times X. Where's the money? Well, you got taxed, right? Now, one of the things I did to help control that, I live in a state with no income tax. So do you. And there's a few of them out there. Like I think Nevada is one of them. Florida is one of them. Delaware, I think, is one of them. Where there's these different states out there that you can have. Texas, I think, is another one with no state income tax. Don't quote me on that. You can look online to see it. But, I think there's 6 or 7 states would actually have no income tax, but you still have to pay the federal. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, again, here's another financial Easter egg for everybody. Who do we pay our federal income tax to? What entity? It's 3 letters.
The IRS.
The IRS. Now, on your notes, I want you to write those 2 words down together. Don't put a space in between them, though. THE, the IRS. THE, IRS. What does that spell?
Theirs.
Theirs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I guarantee there were some guys in Washington 100 years ago laughing over a couple of cocktails going, hey, we'll show them. We're going to get ours out of theirs because it's all ours anyway. And so they came up with the IRS, and that's what happened. Okay. Yeah. Now, you look at that, going back to my tax now, got my check, missing some money. They got theirs, right? What do we do in middle class? Well, I got to pay my bills.
Oh, I was going to say we spend it.
Pay your bills first, but yeah, you pay your bills and then you spend it, and then you try to save what's left over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you try to save what's left over, and then really you start looking at, I'm saving enough, this, that, or the other. But a lot of people, they don't have access. Majority of Americans don't have access to a 401k. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, number one, they work at a really small company, or number two, they're self-employed, so they don't have a 401k. Yeah, you're an entrepreneur, right? You don't have a 401k. So, we hear things like, oh, let's, put your money in an IRA or things like that. But, you look at the big picture and it's like, is that the right thing to do? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the person, right? Which is why you need a financial coach. So I go to put my money in the bank, and every January I get this little form from my bank called a 1099. Okay, which is translation. That's an IRS form. That's a tax bill. So first of all, the banks didn't pay you much. So you put your money in the savings, you get $5.25 in interest. Woo! Excited. But before you go to McDonald's just yet, right? Wait, because you got to send $2 of that back to Uncle Sam. So that's what the tax now is. They get you on the front end.
So your fixed rate at the savings account is even worse.
It's even worse because what little interest you do get, which is little, keyword being little, you don't get to keep much of it. I mean, it's horrible to begin with, but yeah, you got to give what little you get. They want theirs. They're going to get their cut, right? And so then we go into the tax later strategy. Okay, and this is where you see a lot of business owners, a lot of people doing a 401k. This is where they put their money. That's the mainstream savings unit for middle class. IRA, 401k. Okay, and there's a lot of marketing out there talking about that. Our company does that for small businesses. We help 401ks and things like that. But is it the right choice for you? And I see a lot of CPAs and stuff talking to their business owner and clients and things like that. Oh, we got to save you on taxes. We got to put all this money in an IRA. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, great. You save 20 cents, but you eventually go to pull that money out. Not only that, when you go to pull that money out of your 401k, guess what? You're no longer writing off your kids. They're gone, or they may be living in your basement, but you're not getting that tax credit anymore, right?
Right.
Number two is you're not putting into a 401k anymore, so you lose that deduction. Number three, if you have mortgage interest you're writing off, you're not writing it off then because the house is paid off, or you've been in it so long, all the mortgage interest write-offs are at the front end. Mm-hmm. And then if you're doing any tithing, charity, stuff like that, most retirees, they don't write the checks anymore. They go volunteer the time. You can't write that off. So now you're left with a standard deduction. So the gears start winding. It's like, okay, wow, I just spent $2 to save 20 cents and I'm going to pay more for it down the road. But here's the real question, Wendy. Between now and the time you're 65, taxes are going to go up or go down?
Up.
Yeah. So instead of 20 cents.
This is like some of the lowest, right, that we've had in a very long time.
It is. It is. So the highest the taxes have ever been, and most people won't believe this when I say it, but I'm going to say it. The highest the federal tax rate has ever been, I think, was 94% back in 1946.
I remember I love listening to Jim Rohn speeches from back in the day. And he was talking about one of his speeches. He was like, we just got out of a 90 whatever percent tax, like I've paid 90% in taxes. And I'm like, when I heard that, I'm like, he's not serious. Is he? Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, you don't even have to go back to the 40s, right? You go back to the 70s, right? The disco era, Star Wars is coming out, this, that, and the other. taxes were at 70%.
Mhm.
70%.
Mhm.
It wasn't until the early 80s when all of a sudden, hey, we're going to use trickle down economics. We're going to switch over to that and lower the tax rate. Well, you look at that, and it's like, okay, lower the income. And I'm kind of getting off subject here, but I want to talk about this a quick second. You look at when you lower your income in your household, what happens to your spending? You typically cut back, pull in the belt, call it whatever you want.
Right.
The U.S. government doesn't do that.
Right.
Okay. We bring in less money. We just go print more of it and keep spending. Okay. And that's where we're finding ourselves now, which ultimately we're going to have to turn that income stream back on. And that's what's about to happen. So that's why taxes are so important in your plan. And then, so that's a secondary. Tax now, tax later. You're probably going to end up paying a lot more in taxes if you wait to pay them down the road. The third one is tax advantage, or what I like to call tax free on the growth. Okay. What do I mean by that? Well, I pay the 20 cents on that dollar today, and there's things out there like Roths and some other stuff that do this, where I pay the taxes today. I don't have to worry about taxes down the road. So I don't care if taxes go up 3 times what they are today. 0 times 3 is still what? It's still 0.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I've got, how do I grow my money? Just to recap: fixed, variable, indexed, fixed, variable, indexed. And then how do I get taxed on that money? I've got, I've got tax now, front end and back end, tax later, which I'm saving a few pennies today, but I'm going to pay for it down the road. And then tax later, or tax advantage, where that's, I don't pay the taxes today, but I do have to pay it down the road. So of the tax strategies, which would you want to do with your money, Wendy?
So the not taxed on the growth.
Yeah, right? The tax advantage, right?
Yeah, tax advantage.
Yeah, that's the tax advantage. Mm-hmm. But most of us are stuck in variable and tax later. So, when you start looking at that big picture and you start running the numbers, all of a sudden, hopefully some light bulbs are going off out there. And that's what's so scary about all this is,
what do people do if they're in that right now? They're in variable tax later.
So you need to diversify your strategy, just like you diversify, you would never put all your money into one stock, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, for somebody to do that today, you think, oh my gosh, that person's crazy, right? So pull back from that 5,000 foot level and pull back to 20,000 feet. Okay. Mm-hmm. So why would you want to put it in one tax strategy? Mm-hmm. No, I want to diversify. I want my different tax strategies. And I teach a whole course on this in regards to, how do you actually set it up? You can legitimately get to a 0 tax bracket in retirement. Okay. Legally 0 tax bracket in retirement, even with a 401k, as long as you set things up properly going into those retirement years. And if you're looking at retirement in the next 10 years, you should definitely be sitting down with me or somebody and looking at, okay, what can I do to kind of help, prepare for this? Because you don't want to be in a major tax situation. So, that's, what can you do? Sit down, look at your overall strategy. There's a book called Tax Free Retirement by Patrick Kelly, I believe. And I'll post a link to that book in our chat. But it's an awesome book. It talks about, this is the stuff that I teach my clients. This is the stuff that we're working on together as well, kind of bringing that, that good news message out to the Main Street America. But there's a lot of things you can do to prepare. But I can tell you right now, just putting your head down and thinking it'll all work itself out, it won't. It won't. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, you look at if you and I were 100 miles from a destination, okay, and we were going this direction, but we really needed to go 20 degrees to the left. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if we were walking and went 100 miles, we would be way off our final destination. Yep. Whereas if you make some adjustments now, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
All right. Is this stuff making sense?
Absolutely. All right. I think I actually have one of these indexed tax advantage things set up, don't I?
You do actually. That's you do. I'm a big fan. Like I said,
big money move of the year, right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, based on where you were at, it makes sense. I mean, you want to put as much money away as you can, so you don't like the Roth because it's limited. Mm-hmm. As far as you income out, but also what you can put in each year. So it's all in guys and gals. That's really what it's all about. I want to make sure that I'm maximizing my growth. I'm protecting and minimizing my losses, minimizing my taxes legally, minimizing my taxes legally. And then also I want to make sure that I have access to it.
Right.
I talked to a client last night. He had to go and dip into his 401k and he got hit with the taxes and he got hit with a 10% penalty. And he's like, John, he goes, I they could not explain to me why it was a 10% penalty other than it was a 10% penalty mandatory. It's my money. I thought it was my money. And I'm like, well, they want theirs. You know, when you have that 401k or a 403b, you're in partnership with the federal government on that money that you grow. You take all the risk, but they're going to get their cut at the end, right? Or whenever you pull it out. So, you know, just kind of food for thought on that as well. But if you have some questions, you know, you see my link down below, johncleaver.com. You know, reach out to me, Wendy Lee, you know, reach out to her as well. And we can set up a conversation for you. But, you know, again, you need to have a conversation with somebody. Don't try to figure this stuff out on your own. And, you know, it's, if you mention the show, you'll get a free consultation. So don't worry about that. But, you know, it's one of those things that's so critical. And these are just those little money moves. That's why we call this, these little money moves, these little adjustments that can have huge dividends for you down the road. Okay. As far as, you know, what assets you're able to walk into retirement in. And so one of the next shows we're going to talk about is, am I saving enough? You know, we'll look at what different countries are doing and what people do. And, you know, this funny, crazy thing called math and how that all works for your retirement. And that's what I love what I do. It takes the emotion out of it. It's just a numbers game.
Yeah.
You just got to make sure you're putting the right numbers in. So anything to add on that, Wendy? I kind of went through a lot there, but, you know, we squeezed a lot into a half an hour. But what are your thoughts? Any final thoughts?
I would say, I just think it's important, like, because it's a lot of information, right? And I know there's people probably watching that go, I don't even know where to start. And like you said, about like putting your head down and like not paying attention. I did that with a money situation, and it came back to bite me years later. So, don't put your head down and just connect with John or me, or if you connect with me, I'm probably going to connect you with John, but connect. And, you know, I want to say that John is somebody that you can trust to help you make these decisions and to get the right people around you, right? I'm finally in a place in my life where I'm smart enough to realize that I don't know everything, and I'm getting the right people around me that know their area of expertise, so I can lean on them, people that I trust, to help me make the right moves for my future. So I just think it's important to not feel bad if you don't know this stuff, because you saw I didn't say much on this one because I don't really know a ton about this.
Yeah, but most of us don't. Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. I mean, you know, here's the real question. That's kind of the real question is, why the heck aren't they teaching us this stuff in school, right?
Yeah.
You know, I took algebra.
Want us to be broke.
I'm just saying, right? I took algebra, I took geometry, you know, I took trigonometry, and some other classes. I don't use any of that today. None of it, right? I mean, you know, okay, if I'm playing pool, maybe geometry a little bit, but you know, you look at the big impact on life. All of us use money, and they don't teach us this stuff. And we've talked about that before, and I'm just dumbfounded that it's, you know, still the case. But that's why we have this show, you know, in order to help people to make those decisions. But yeah, if you need help, the only bad question or dumb question is the one you don't ask, right? And here's the thing, you're not alone. Most of us are in this same boat where we don't understand what's going on. We're just telling everybody, oh, everything's great. We're saving. And you start looking at, why aren't I getting the growth that I thought I should have? You know, what's going on with my money? And you should start asking those questions, right? What's going on with my money? I need to figure it out. So, you know, get with somebody, call us. We'll be more than happy to help you, but get with somebody and make some money moves. Don't just be a money victim, right? Make some money moves, and you'll be smiling like Wendy is right now when you get to retirement. So everybody, that wraps it up for today. We're going to do a show on a money team. That's a great idea. I love that concept, Wendy, that you just threw out there. You know, who's your money team? We're also going to be talking about, am I saving enough? I mentioned that. So do me a favor, click that like button, hit subscribe, share it with your friends, tell your friends and family how awesome the show is, and share it with them. We're trying to get that algorithm working for our favor and get this news out so people won't be devastated when they hit 60 or 65. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.